Ajasya janmot patanashanaya karmanya kartur grahanaya pungsam nanvan yatha korati teha yogam paro gunanam utakarma tantram. The appearance of the Lord is manifested for the annihilation of the upstarts. His activities are transcendental and are enacted for the understanding of all persons. Otherwise, since the Lord is transcendental to all material modes, what purpose could He serve by coming to earth? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Isvarah paramah krsnah sac-cid-ananda-vigrahah. Brahma-samhita 5.1. The form of the Lord is eternal, blissful and all-knowing. His so-called birth is therefore an appearance only, like the birth of the sun on the horizon. His birth does not, like that of the living entities, take place under the influence of material nature and the bondage of the reactions of past deeds. His works and activities are independent pastimes and are not subject to the reactions of material nature. In Bhagavad-gita 4:14 it is said, Namam karmani limbhanti name karma pale spriha iti mam yo bhajan nati karma bhirna sabhajyate. The law of karma, enacted by the Supreme Lord for the living entities, cannot be applicable to him. Nor has the Lord any desire to improve himself by activities like those of ordinary living beings. Ordinary living beings work for the improvement of their conditional lives. But the Lord is already full of all opulence, all strength, all fame, all beauty, all knowledge, and all renunciation. Why should He desire improvement? No one can excel Him in any opulence, and therefore the desire for improvement is absolutely useless for Him. One should always discriminate between the activities of the Lord and those of ordinary living beings. Thus, one may come to the right conclusion regarding the Lord's transcendental position. One who can come to the conclusion of the Lord's transcendence can become a devotee of the Lord and can at once be free from all reactions of past deeds. It is said, Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajam. The Lord minimizes or nullifies the reactionary influence of the devotee's past deeds. Brahma-samhita 5:54. The activities of the Lord are to be accepted and relished by all living entities. His activities are to attract the ordinary man towards the Lord. The Lord always acts in favor of the devotees, and therefore ordinary men who are fruitive actors or seekers of salvation may be attracted to the Lord when he acts as protector of the devotees. The fruitive actors can attain their goals by devotional service, and the salvationists can also attain their goal by devotional service to the Lord. The devotees do not want the fruitive results of their work, nor do they want any kind of salvation. They relish the glorious superhuman activities of the Lord, such as his lifting Govardhan hill and his killing of the demon Putana in infancy. His activities are enacted to attract all kinds of men, karamis, jnanis, and bhaktas. Because he is transcendental to all the laws of karma, there is no possibility of his accepting a form of maya, as is forced on the ordinary living entities who are bound by the actions and reactions of their own deeds. The secondary purpose of his appearance is to annihilate the upstart asuras and to stop the nonsense atheistic propaganda by less intelligent persons. By the Lord's causeless mercy, the asuras are killed personally by the personality of Godhead, get salvation. The meaningful appearance of the Lord is always distinct from ordinary birth. Even the pure devotees have no connection with the material body, and certainly the Lord, who appears as he is in his sac-cid-ananda form, is not limited by a material form. In this dialogue, between Vidura and Uddhava, Vidura is inquiring from Uddhava into the subjects regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead and his relationships with his devotees. It is the greatest treasure in the heart of a fortunate soul to hear the glorious topics of Krishna and his devotees. There is no difference between hearing about Krishna directly and hearing about those devotees who have surrendered their lives in the loving service of Krishna. Because the activities of the devotees manifest to the world the glories of the personality of Godhead. The devotee's purpose within this earth are the same as the Lord himself. It is said that the Lord appears in this world to annihilate the miscreants, to re-establish the principles of religion, and most of all, to protect his devotees. But Srila Prabhupada says, on behalf of all the great acharyas, that the real protection is not just a physical type of protection, but by attracting people to his wonderful teachings and his glorious pastimes, he protects people from the cycle of birth and death. Therefore, the most important aspect of the Lord's pastimes is that he establishes such wonderful attractive topics to hear, that for all time to come, people can be relieved of suffering forever just by hearing these transcendental subjects. Maharaj Parikshit is such a nice example. He was cursed to die, but yet, even in that situation, where he was not eating food, he was not drinking water, he was not sleeping, and he was facing imminent death, very, very difficult obstructions in one's happy life in this world. How many people can find happiness with no food, no water, and no sleep? What to speak of one's pride being completely smashed to pieces by material standards? He was a great, powerful king, and a tiny little boy completely annihilated everything he had in life. It's quite a crushing blow to the ego of a materialistic person. He had already shown that Kali personified was so fearful that he surrendered to this great king. And in Srimad Bhagavatam we read how so many great sages were chanting the glories of the activities of Maharaj Parikshit. And yet a tiny little child had the power to totally defeat him by cursing. And therefore, it was it would have been painful to the ego of someone who had a false ego. So in every way, Maharaj Parikshit was facing terrible, terrible crisis in his life. What to speak of the fact that it was certain he was going to die within 7 days? For most people, that would create fear within the heart. But Maharaj Parikshit, just by hearing the topics of Krishna's teachings and activities from such a great and pure soul as Shukadeva Goswami, he was completely transcendental to hunger, to thirst, to no sleep, to the fact he was going to die in a few days, and to the fact that he had just lost his kingdom, he had just been separated from his wife, his children. He had just been humiliated by a child. In this way, we can learn that the Lord's real mercy is that He comes to establish these wonderful pastimes. We may think that the Lord has not appeared to me directly. We are only hearing these transcendental sound vibrations, but there's a difference. But actually in Maharaj Parikshit's life, the stories Sukadeva Goswami were telling were from long ages before. He was telling him the story of Ambarish Maharaj, of Prahlad Maharaj, of Dhruva Maharaj. Some of these narrations were from Satya Yuga. Varaha Dev. That means they were millions of years before Maharaj Parikshit. Yet he was living this experience just by hearing it. And when he was speaking the 10th canto, Krishna's wonderful pastimes, Maharaj Parikshit may have seen Krishna within the womb of his mother for a brief moment. But as far as the Vrindavan pastimes, his only access to that wonderful experience was through transcendental sound vibration, through hearing. And he was experiencing directly the Supreme Lord in all of these leelas through sound. And that is why Srila Prabhupada puts great stress on the fact that what was available to Arjuna 5,000 years ago when he was sitting on the chariot in Kurukshetra listening to Krishna is available in the exact same way to anyone with a spirit of humility and devotion listens to Bhagavad-gita even today. What was available to the Gopas and the Gopis of Vrindavan playing with Krishna in the groves of Braja is available to anyone today who with such a pure and humble heart hears the wonderful pastimes of Krishna as the cowherd boy of Vrindavan Dham. This is the power of transcendental sound vibration. And Krishna's main purpose of descending into this world is to perform pastimes to please his devotees and to establish the reality of those pastimes through sound to give access to everyone to the ecstatic bliss of spiritual ras and the relief of all material suffering. Vidura had been traveling on a long pilgrimage after he was very badly insulted by Duryodhana, and he was without any association most of the time due to very extraordinary, difficult circumstances. But here we find that in inquiring about Krishna, in just being eager to hear about Krishna, he is experiencing Krishna in such a wonderful way. If we look at the quality of these great personalities, like Arjuna, or Parikshit Maharaj, or Vidura, they are inquiring with such an intense eagerness to hear. And therefore, when they hear the narration from a proper source, Krishna is manifesting within their hearts through that sound vibration. Eagerness to hear about Krishna is one of the greatest virtues that we should all aspire to develop within our lives. Because Krishna reveals himself as we approach him. And Krishna has appeared within the sound of his teachings and the sound of his pastimes. And to the degree we are eager to hear, to that degree Krishna will reveal himself through this beautiful narration. As an example, Krishna has given us in the lives of his devotees the most wonderful exemplary character for all of us to aspire to achieve. And that is why hearing the glories of the devotees is non-different than hearing the glories of Krishna. In fact, you cannot understand Krishna Katha, directly Krishna Katha, without understanding Katha about great Vaishnavas. Because they teach us how to approach Krishna Katha. Vidura, Arjuna, Parikshit, they are approaching the sound of Krishna. They are approaching the descent of Krishna through sound vibration with such a sense of urgency, with such a sense of eager necessity for their very survival. They were not complacently just hearing as a formality. Now it is 7:45. It is the regulated time for Srimad Bhagavatam class. So I will sit for the class. And no one will criticize me for not being there. I will sit and I will perform this formality, but I really hope the speaker ends on time, because it's a great austerity. If we have this consciousness, then we will hear so many words, and there will be very, very little purification for our hearts. It's the same as coming before the deity and thinking, oh, somehow or other I've come before the deity because it is the regulation. But I wish this arti would finish quickly so I could go back to sleep. If we are approaching the deity like that, or if we are approaching the holy name, when will my rounds be done? Only 3 more to go. Then there will be great relief in my life. I can do what I want to do. Of course, that is better than not chanting, not coming to arti, or not coming to Srimad Bhagavatam class. But it is not what we should aspire for. It is not what we have seen in great acharyas, in whose footsteps we should follow. The great acharyas and the Lord himself, in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was setting the example of a devotee, how all devotees should be, they were eager. We saw yesterday in beautiful drama how when Lord Gauranga was going to see Lord Jagannath in Sri Puri Dham, he was running to the temple. He was running to the temple. Jagannath, Jagannath, in such separation. Sometimes when Lord Chaitanya would be running, whether there was thorns in the road, he didn't even notice. He was just running to see Jagannath. And when he came before the beautiful form of Jagannath, his heart was so full with the fulfillment of all of his anticipations in life to see this divine darshan that he fell completely unconscious in ecstatic love. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he would go to Gadadhar Pandit's house to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, he would be so wrapped in transcendental eagerness to hear. It wasn't, oh, I already heard that story before. I already know that story. I don't want to hear it again. He would just listen. It is said that when he would hear the story of Dhruva Maharaj or Prahlad Maharaj, he would just be in such rapture. He would say, speak it again. And he would go through the whole story again, Gadadhar Pandit. And Lord Chaitanya would say, speak it again. And he would say the story of Dhruva Maharaj, and Lord Chaitanya would say, speak it again. Sometimes entire days would go where they would just be speaking the same story again and again and again and again. And Lord Chaitanya never tired. He was so eager to hear it. He was in rapt attention. And as far as this eagerness for kirtan, we explained last Sunday how when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was entrenched in his divine mood of tasting the nectar of kirtan, he was so eager to hear the holy name that nothing else mattered. He would not speak to anyone. Even when devotees came with a very, very critical message to try to relate to him, there was no way that anyone could get through. He was just chanting and dancing and chanting and dancing and chanting and dancing, and even the most intimate associates of Lord could not get his attention away from the holy name. That was his eagerness. And that same eagerness we find in great devotees. We have said several times, 1972 when Srila Prabhupada was at New Vrindavan for Janamastami, he wanted the reading of Krishna book, and it was very hot, small temple. The temple room is maybe 1/4 the size of this, even less. And there were hundreds and hundreds of devotees from all over the world crushed in the temple. It was more crowded in the temple room than the second-class Indian trains during the rush hour. It was complete crushing. Everyone was like, and people were outside in the windows and at the doors, and they were reading from Krishna book, different sannyasis. And people were so hot, and there was no fans, there was no ventilation. It was such a simple farm community in those days. And it was midnight, and Srila Prabhupada was sitting with his back erect, engrossed in hearing about Krishna. And everyone else was engrossed in the misery of hunger, fatigue, heat, and the embarrassment of being such neophytes. People were falling down and people were sighing, ah! Prabhupada just, next chapter. Hour after hour after hour, he was just tasting the nectar of Krishna. He was experiencing, everyone could see, he was experiencing Krishna. Devotees were fanning him, and sometimes the fans were falling from their hands. But he was engrossed in Krishna. And this is the quality. And when we hear stories like this about Srila Prabhupada, it's not different than hearing about Krishna. Because devotional service is not different than Krishna. When we hear about the sacrifice and the love of a devotee, Krishna manifests through that sound. And it is principally for this reason that the Lord descends to this world. For what other reason would he come? The living entities who are conditioned by material desires enter into the material atmosphere because they have unfulfilled longings to achieve. Due to our karmic past, we have so many attachments. And therefore, by the shackles of the three modes of material nature, we are forced helplessly to take birth after birth after birth to somehow or other try to fulfill our desires and to somehow or other maintain our attachments. And therefore, it is a hard struggle for existence. But Krishna is Atmaram. He is self-satisfied. He has no desires to fulfill in this material world. He is the Lord and Master of the laws of karma, which constitute the basic activity of material existence. He has no reason to come to this world except to show his love and mercy to those who have rejected him. And this is always to be understood, Srila Prabhupada explains, the difference between Krishna and an ordinary living being. Just the fact that we have taken birth in this material world means we have nothing to be proud of. It means that we are sinful. It means we are envious. It means we are ungrateful. Unless you are a Paramahamsa who descends on the order of God from the spiritual world, this is your condition. Anyone taking birth in this world is envious, selfish, and sinful. So what do we have to think we're so great? Why should we show off to others when underlying it all, that's the reality? The fact that we're here is undisputable, that we're just envious rascals who have rejected God. Hare Krishna. Due to our greed and our passions, we remain in this material world. So therefore, devotees don't become proud. Devotees always see the reality underlying their existence, that they're fallen. And therefore, and the reality and the proof is I'm here in this material existence. And therefore, a devotee helplessly calls out for Krishna, understands the desperate, urgent need to take shelter of Krishna, which is most prominently available through hearing His glories and chanting His holy names and serving His devotees. Why should we not take a humble position of a servant? The all-great personality of Godhead accepts our service only through service to Guru and service to His devotees. Otherwise, there's no way we can approach Krishna. During the nice Vyas Puja ceremony of Srila Prabhupada, one of our devotees was reading that beautiful passage of Lord Narayan speaking to the Prachetas. The Prachetas performed austerities to get the darshan of the Lord. And the Lord explained why He gave His darshan to them. It wasn't because they were fasting, which they were. It wasn't because they had left their homes and were living such a simple life in a forest setting. It was because they were cooperating so nicely with one another for the purpose of pleasing Him. That is why He appeared and gave such special mercy to them. Because He wanted to show that this mood of cooperating and serving Vaishnavas is the means by which we can approach God. And there's no other way. Especially in this age of Kali Yuga. In Sakti Yuga, Dhruva Maharaj, he went to the forest. But because of his great determination, Lord sent Narada Muni to enlighten him. And then he performed such tapasya. But actually in his tapasya he was very much immersed in associating with his spiritual master, Narada Muni, by perfectly adhering to his instructions. The instruction of the spiritual master is not different than the spiritual master. The instruction of the spiritual master is his manifestation of giving us Krishna. That instruction is not different than Krishna, because the instruction is coming from parampara. So by strictly remembering and adhering the instructions of the spiritual master, we have connection to Krishna. It is the only means of our connection to Krishna. So Dhruva Maharaj was able in Satya Yuga to have such intensely loving relationship with his Guru Maharaj through following his instruction all alone in the forest. But in the age of Kali Yuga, it's not possible. Therefore, the Lord has inaugurated the Sankirtan movement. Sankirtan means together with other devotees. Samyak means in unity together we glorify Krishna through the 9 processes of devotional service. So our cooperation, our willingness to live in harmony with each other, our serving each other, our inspiring each other to hear about Krishna with eagerness, to worship the deity with eagerness, to perform kirtan of the holy name with eagerness. We need each other to keep that flame alive, to be eager for Krishna consciousness. This is the means by which we can associate with Krishna. And there's no other way. Srila Prabhupada many times said, it's even in one of his books, he said, anyone who thinks they can be Krishna conscious without the association of devotees is insane. Very strong word, insane. Prabhupada selected his words very, very carefully. So, this wonderful Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction for humanity at large. Because through following the Sankirtan movement, the doors to the ultimate perfection of liberation are being opened for all of us. And we must learn how to properly inspire each other to be eager for Krishna. This is actually, of all services to Vaishnavas, this is of paramount importance. Because Krishna will reveal himself to us to the degree we are eager for Krishna. We are anxious for Krishna. We are running for Krishna. So to inspire others for that purpose is our greatest service. And how to inspire someone to be eager for Krishna? Not by sleeping during class. Not by thinking of so many excuses why I don't have time. Not by chanting japa in a mood of looking very bored and filled with pain and agony. Not by somehow or other waiting for some excuse to leave the kirtan. But by our enthusiasm. If we're eager to hear, if we're running for class, and not only running for class, but talk about it. After class, devotees should, did you hear what was said today? Today, Radha Gopinath Prabhu gave class. Did you hear such a nice example he gave? When we speak like that, that means we were eager to hear, and we're eager to repeat it. If you're eager to hear something, you'll be eager to repeat what you hear. It's natural. Or if we read Srila Prabhupada's books, that's hearing. If you're eager to hear, you'll be eager to tell others. Do you know what I read today? Srila Prabhupada said that Mayavadis are cheating, and that so many bogus scientists are cheating. Isn't that nectar? I read that today. And everybody will be, oh, yes, yes, where did you read that? Tell me more, tell me more. This is how we should be living. This is how society of devotees should be relating with each other. Sometimes we meet each other, we don't really know what to say. We say, how are you? Which is very good. Devotees should ask, inquire. After all, even the great personalities, when they meet, they always, in Bhagavatam, they always say, how are you? How is your father and your mother? Like that. That's natural expression of concern and love. That should be exchanged between devotees. But then it shouldn't be that after we say, how are you, we have nothing else to say. We have so many things to say. Tell me, what did you read today? Tell me, what did you hear in class today? Do you know what Devamrit Prabhu said today? He explained the whole Siddhanta of Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy in just a few sentences. It was so beautiful, so wonderful. Listen to this. Yes. This is our relationships. Eager to hear, eager to speak about Krishna. And when we come to see the deities, we should be eager to see the deities. And we should be eager to talk about the deities. Krishna, Radha Gopinath, so beautiful today. Did you see how his peacock feather was so nicely on his, decorating his turban? And did you see how wonderful the peacocks were looking at him? So many things we could say. We should be reminding each other of Radha Gopinath. And by doing that, we become eager and other people become eager. And this is Sankirtan. And then we actually develop loving relationships with each other. But it should be on the principle of trying to inspire each other to be eager to engage in devotional service, which begins by being eager to hear about Krishna and chant His holy names. Krishna descends to give the world His beautiful teachings and His wonderful pastimes to hear. And to the degree we're eager to hear, to that degree we are actually reciprocating with His merciful descent into this world. Because for Krishna there's no consideration of time. Whether He descended in this world 5,000 years ago, 5 million years ago, 5 trillion years ago, or 5 minutes ago, it really makes no difference, because time has nothing to do with Krishna's Leela. In Mayapur, Koladvip, there was one devotee named Vasudev, and he was a great devotee of Lord Varahadev. He was always meditating on the pastimes of Varahadev, and always praying and longing for the mercy of Varahadev. Varahadev appeared millions and millions of years ago, but he wasn't thinking, oh, that was so long back, I should be thinking of a more recent historical incident. I should be thinking about Alexander the Great. He came to India just about 1,000 years ago. But Varahadev, he came to India millions and millions and millions of years ago. He was thinking about Varahadev. He was praying to Varahadev. He was remembering the pastimes in such devotional way. And what was the result? That Lord Varahadev personally appeared to him in his original transcendental form of a boar, and gave him special mercy and darshan, and told him, in this age of Kali Yuga, I will come in a beautiful golden form of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. The essence of all avatars. So it's not a question of time, it's transcendental. The vibration makes the pastime a reality at the present moment. That is the difference between transcendental sound and mundane history. When you read about the king of the Chola dynasty, so many years back in the southern provinces of India, the sound vibration has nothing to do with those kings. It just gives you a remembrance of what happened many centuries ago. When we hear about World War II, where the Allied forces, the French and the British and the Americans, they were bombing Berlin. And people, the leader of the country, like a rat, was hiding underground. You think, oh. But when we read about the Battle of Kurukshetra, it happened 5,000 years ago. But when we hear the Mahabharata, when we hear the teachings of Gita, the reality of that battle is happening at the present moment, because it is transcendental. Because Krishna is beyond time and space. World War II, not beyond time and space. It's just some little insignificant segment in history that's long gone. But Krishna's pastimes are ever existing. In fact, they're always happening somewhere in the physical state. And they're always happening wherever sincere devotees are eager to hear it. So we should understand that taking shelter of Krishna means taking shelter of Krishna's appearance in His name and His sound vibration. We must find shelter in reading Srimad Bhagavatam. We must seek shelter in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. And most of all, we should help each other. We need help. We need to find devotees who are eager about Krishna to inspire my dry and dead heart. Heart is dead if it's not anxious to hear about Krishna. Spiritually dead. Our life is our eagerness. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, a preacher must be enthusiastic. If he's enthusiastic with life, he can preach. But you cannot preach with life and enthusiasm until first you hear with life and enthusiasm. And that was Srila Prabhupada's very, very transcendental quality that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati personally took note of. He's anxious to hear. Therefore, he will be anxious to speak. When Srila Prabhupada went to Koshi during the Braj Mandala Parikrama, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada was speaking. And so many hundreds upon hundreds of people were there on that parikrama. And people were coming to listen, and then they were going to visit different holy places, and coming and going and coming and going. But Srila Prabhupada sat there listening. He was attentive. He would not move. He even told us that my Guru Maharaj was speaking in such high philosophical language, so many things I didn't even understand. But I was anxious to hear from him. I was eager to be with him and just listen, whether I understood or not. He was so eager. Until Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, he was preaching for hours and hours and hours, and soon it was just Srila Prabhupada and one or two other senior Vaishnavas left. And Prabhupada stayed until he left. Then in Allahabad, when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati came, he was introduced by the brahmachari that this is Abhay. He is very good candidate for initiation. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said, yes, I have taken note. He likes to hear. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told all the leaders of his mat and all the leaders of his publication department that this Abhay Charanaravinda, because he is so eager to hear, whatever he speaks will be perfect. You print whatever he writes. Not only was he eager to just sit and listen, he was eager to reciprocate with what he heard. At one Ultadanga Junction Road in Calcutta, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told Srila Prabhupada, you should preach in the English language all over the world this message of Lord Chaitanya. He heard that. And he made it his life and soul to do it. To be eager to hear doesn't mean just to let the sound go in one ear and then escape from the other. It means to be eager to grasp onto that sound, to grasp onto the teaching, and to hold it with dear life. Srila Prabhupada never let go of that instruction. He just clung to it and based his whole life preparing for it. At Sri Radha Kund, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told Srila Prabhupada, if you get money, print books. Srila Prabhupada heard with such eagerness and was so eager to do it. This is part of eagerness to hear. To actually put into our life what we have heard. To repeat the message through our words and through our life's example. And that is how we become good servants. First we're eager to hear, then we're just so enthusiastic to execute. And that's what will make us great preachers, not being big scholars. There are so many big scholars. There was many people who may appear to have been much better scholars than Srila Prabhupada. Definitely, amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas, many people are much more famous than Srila Prabhupada for being very, very erudite scholars of the Shastras. But Srila Prabhupada had the quality that empowered him to do what nobody else could do. Why? Because he was so eager to repeat what he heard from his guru with his heart and soul. When he wrote to one of his very senior godbrothers, told him he wanted to go to the West. He wanted to spread this mission. He wanted to fulfill the expectation of his guru's order to him. He was so eager, so anxious, so enthusiastic. His godbrother said, you just come and live with our mutt for some time. And we don't have so much money now, but we'll give you a nice room and we'll give you some nice servants, and after some time we'll see. So he could have had a nice room and nice servants and good prasad. But he was burning with an eagerness to reciprocate with what he heard from his guru. And instead of that, he went to Bombay. He had no servants here. He was begging from Mataji at Juhu, please give me a ticket to go to America. So this is how we should try to inspire each other. To hear about Krishna, to chant the names of Krishna, to reciprocate and serve Krishna. This enthusiasm is the greatest contagious power. If devotees are enthusiastic, nothing can stop them. There's no power of Maya that can stop an enthusiastic devotee. And we must really make our great energy to enthuse each other. If you can enthuse a devotee, you have done the greatest service. But to enthuse, you must be enthusiastic. And that is an austerity. But it is a necessary austerity. It is explained here that this is really the reason Krishna descends to this world. To give the beautiful narration that we can take shelter of, beyond time and space. So let us all generate a great, great eagerness amongst each other to hear this wonderful message of Hari Katha. And let us share this message constantly, always. Recently I was in one country and one ex-temple president approached me and said, you know, people never talk about Krishna except in class. In class we hear sometimes we hear about Krishna in class. But after class, everyone just talks about so many other things. People talk about management, and people talk about problems, and people talk about what people are doing. But hardly we hear anything about Krishna. And we're supposed to always be thinking about Krishna. And this actually is the tendency. If we're eager for something, it's not that we keep that thing in one little time sequence of our life. Hearing about Krishna is for Srimad Bhagavatam class. I have my 1 hour quota of hearing about Krishna. And once a week I give class. So that's my 1 hour quota of talking about Krishna. We should be eager at every moment to find some opportunity to talk about Krishna and hear about Krishna, inquire about Krishna. We should be like that. We should be looking for an excuse if someone says something. Like somebody says, my doctor told me I should eat bananas. You should say, yes, Kolavecha Sridhar, he used to sell bananas. And Lord Chaitanya used to steal his bananas. We should be looking for every opportunity to connect something to Krishna, remind people of Krishna, and discuss it. Let this be the famous trademark of Radha Gopinath Temple. Devotees can't stop talking about Krishna. Anything you say, it's raining today. Yes, it's raining. And it was due to rains that the ocean swelled up and Matsyavatar came and spoke the Vedas. Hare Krishna. Somehow or other we should be taxing our brains to connect everything to Krishna. And not just keep it to ourselves, but share that, inspire, eager, enthusiastic. Krishna will empower us. The higher taste for Krishna consciousness comes to the degree that we are eager to hear and chant about Krishna and serve his devotees. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any questions? Yes, Gauranga Prabhu. Last night, Gauranga Prabhu very substantially defeated Keshava Kashmiri.
Sometimes when we are discussing about Krishna with other devotees, either reading from Bhagavad or Bhagavad-gita, then if the other person is not so much interested in hearing, sometimes he goes out to sleep while we are discussing or while we are reading, then it becomes very difficult to continue discussion.